Welcome, welcome, welcome. Practice round, first ever flip video. Getting ready to work through some different ideas. Get a nice little mug of this guy right here. Welcome to Mr. Nie's flipped math classroom. We got Chapter 5, Lesson 1 about algebraic expressions. We're going to break down to the video about what you need to do in order to get your notes ready, in order to be ready to go for a work day after this video. So we're going to practice in class, and we're going to see how this looks and what we can do to improve. So as we start to embark. First of all, we need our notebook set up. So at this point, if you need to take a pause, press pause, get your notebook set out, and click play once you're ready to come back. Once you're back, now that you have things set up along the top. First, you have NNN written there. That stands for Nie's, Night, Notes. This is a great way to just help categorize and help organize your notes. So we can start off with the NNN, then we have our Chapter 5, Lesson 1. Help yourself remember those so you know exactly when you're going back what lesson we're studying. Then the title of ours is Algebraic Expressions, and then please put today's date, and then right in that top corner. So before we keep moving forward, make sure your notebook is set up with the notes, what lesson it is, the title, and then today's date. As we move forward, we always do have an essential question for the day. Our essential question today is how can you use numbers and symbols to represent mathematical ideas? Up top here, you're going to see just a listening symbol. Don't need you to write anything down at this point. Don't need you to solve anything. Don't need you to stop. Or at this point, we're just listening. So anytime you see this symbol, just know that's your responsibility just to hear what I'm saying and make sure that you process through it. So how can you use numbers and symbols to represent mathematical ideas? We have a couple vocabs, so you'll see some different symbols up here. We have your stop. And so we're actually going to, whenever you need the time, take a pause, you're going to listen, and then you're going to write some stuff down. When we do define, we're going to have your definitions, just jot those right down in your notes, and then we can move forward and use those definitions as we apply. So our first definition is variable. The variable is just a symbol that represents an unknown quantity. An unknown quantity being represented by a symbol. These symbols can be M, X, N, smiley face, some kind of symbol to represent an unknown quantity. This part I need you to have in your notebook. Secondly, we have algebraic expression. An algebraic expression is just an expression that contains variables, numbers, and at least one operation. A couple examples would be 6 plus n equals 10. We have an expression. We have a variable. We have a number. And we have at least one operation. Another example could be 3n plus 4 equals 14. Here again, we have a variable, we have several numbers, and we have at least one operation. So an algebraic expression contains variables, numbers, and at least one operation. So again, you just need to have the definition written in your notes, take a pause, make sure you finish before you continue. As we move forward, now we want to look through some algebraic expressions. We want to solve some. Okay? So first of all, our example, and again, you're going to stop whenever you need to write those down, take a pause, but then you're going to listen and be writing some stuff down in your notebook. So example number 1, please write that in your notes. And then as we evaluate, I want you to write down the solution as well. So now we know that n equals -4. And so now we're just using this idea about substitution. So I'm going to rewrite. I have 2 parentheses, -4 plus 3. And I need to solve. So now that I substituted in -4 for n, I can just move them forward and solve. So now I know that I'm going to solve some things in parentheses first. So that means I have -4 plus 3 equals -1. And now I have a 2 outside of that -1. Remember, anytime we said that you have a number smashed together with another number, smashed together with another variable, that always means multiply. So now I have 2 times -1, and that equals -2. Make sure that example gets written in your notebooks. Now we're going to go on to number 2. Evaluate 8w minus 2v if w is 5 and v is 3. So again, I'm going to rewrite and substitute. So I have 8 times w, which equals 5, minus 2 times v. 2 times v equals 3 in this case, so I'm just going to substitute. Now we got to go through some things about order of operations. I've inserted this order of operations idea as a reminder about how to work order of operations. First, remember, we always have to evaluate any expressions that have grouping symbols like parentheses or brackets. Then we evaluate all exponents. I have absolutely no exponents and no grouping symbols. So I'm going to multiply and divide, then I add and subtract. So that means I need to multiply this and that before I actually subtract them. So now I have 8 times 5 is 40, minus 2 times 3 is 6. Now I do 40 minus 6 to give me 34 for my final answer. Finally, so get this written down in your notebook as well. And finally, we have this last example where we have 4y times 3, or I'm sorry, 4y to the third power plus 2 if y equals 3. So again, now I'm just going to substitute to rewrite. So I have 4 times y equals 3, and I have 3 to the third power. Now I have plus 2. Still have an expression because I have a variable, I had the y, I substituted a number, and now I have more than one operation. Actually, I have 3 operations. So again, using order of operations, I have no grouping symbols, so I can cross out number 1. I have to evaluate all powers. I do have a power here, so I need to solve that first. So I'm going to rewrite there. 4 times 3 to the third power is 3 times 3 times 3, and that equals 27. So now I'm going to rewrite 27 in there. And now I'm just going to add my plus 2. Now I'm looking back to my order of operations. Now I need to multiply and divide before I add and subtract. So now I'm going to do 4 times 27, and I don't know that off the top of my head, so I'm just going to do a little notes up here. 27 times 4, I get 8. Carry my 2 for 28. 4 times 2 is 8 plus 2 is 10. I get 108, so now I'm going to rewrite. I have 108 plus 2. It's going to be a grand total of 110 when I add that final 2. So again, all we have to do is substitution, and remember our order of operations that we go through we go through grouping symbols, powers, then we multiply and divide, then we add and subtract. Okay? So make sure those examples get written in your notebooks, and then continue when you're ready. Now, I want you to try, after you've gotten those in your notebooks, we're going to start hearing a hearing symbol, plus you're also going to write something down. So I would like you to try at least 3 of these problems. We're going to come back, and you're going to, once you hit play again, I'll go through some different answers. So we have evaluate each expression of c equals 8 and d equals -5. Try 3 of them, then come back. As we come back together, here we have our answers at the very bottom. A was 5, B was 7, C was 9, D was 36, E was -69, and F was 25. I'm not going to go through each one of these because you only did 3 of them. If you have questions about how I got those problems, go back and try them again. Otherwise, make sure that you're asking us questions when we come together. Okay? So if you understood those, that's fantastic. If not, now we got questions for tomorrow. So we're going to take a pause, and we're going to insert our first notes joke. This is, again, you're going to insert this, you're going to insert the answer by writing your answer down in your notes, so I know that you watched this video. So your video of the day, or your joke of the day, why don't you play cards in the jungle? Why don't you play cards in the jungle? Well, the answer, of course, is that there are too many cheetahs. Excellent, excellent stuff. So give me this written down, too many cheetahs written in your book. Now I know that you watched this video. Other notes we got to know is that a fraction bar is also a grouping symbol. Remember that from the order of operations, that if we have grouping symbols, those are the first things we need to take care of. So if you remember that note before, evaluate all expressions inside grouping symbols. Then we evaluate powers, then multiply and divide, then add and subtract. So now, if we see this example problem, again, you're just listening to this one. I don't need you to write this one down, but I just want to make sure that you have exposure to this one. So if we're looking at this, now we know that athletic trainers use the formula 3 times 220 minus A divided by 5, where A is a person's age, to find their minimum training heart rate. Find Latrina's minimum training heart rate if she's 15 years old. So we substitute in 15 for A. So if I rewrite, I'm now down to 3 times 220 minus 15 divided by 5. Now as I go through my order of operations, I do my stuff in parentheses and my grouping symbols first. So I do 220 minus 15. If I rewrite, I get left with 3 times 205, which is 220 minus 15 divided by 5. I'm going to shrink some stuff down here so I have a little bit more room. So I just shrunk some stuff down a little bit so we had some more space. So now we have our new equation is 3 times 205 divided by 5. I don't know 3 times 205 off the top of my head, but remember that the fraction bar, like we saw up here, fraction bar is a grouping symbol, meaning that I do the numerator first, and then the denominator. So I'm going to need to solve this numerator before I do any division. And so I need to figure out what 3 times 205 is. I don't know that off the top of my head, so I'm going to multiply, and I get 15. 3 times 0 is 0 plus 1. 3 times 2 is 6. I get 615. Rewriting, I have 615 divided by 5. And when I crank that out, I get 5 goes in once, 5, subtract, 1 goes in twice to 11. and I get 10 left over. I'm going to rewrite my borrowing up here. If I subtract away, I have 1, then I bring down my 5. 5 goes into 15 3 times, and so now my final answer in this one is going to be 123. When I put it in context of the problem, 123 beats per minute is the minimum training heart rate for a 15-year-old. So this one is just an example of grouping symbols. We have a lot of step processes to go through. We substitute, we solve, we divide, we can figure it out. Finally, I have one more slide for us, and again, this one's just listening. So here we're defining a variable. So here you might get a word problem, and you got to figure out what variable we can use. So as you read, we have Marissa wants to buy a DVD player that costs $150. She already saved $25 and plans to save an additional $10 a week. That's going to be huge for us right here. She already saved $25 and plans to save an additional $10 per week. Write an expression that represents the total amount of money Marissa has saved after any number of weeks. So first of all, we have this nice little segment here where we have something going from words to a variable to finally an expression. You see that I cut out the expression so we can solve that together. So the savings, so the words that we can describe this is we have a savings of $25 plus $10 each week because we're saving $25 and an additional $10 per week. Then we need to know what's unknown. That's our process here in defining a variable. What is unknown? It's unknown how many weeks we're going to actually be working. So write an expression for her saved after any number of weeks. So this is a key indicator too, any number of weeks. So now we need to figure out, okay, well I need to use a symbol there because I need to define my variable. So now my expression becomes $25 plus $10 each week. When I have $10 each week, I can multiply 10 times W because that's $10 for every single week. Then after I figure that out, I just tack on $25 and I know how much she has in order to buy her DVD player. So writing an expression first, we have to define a variable. Then we have to make sure that we can understand the concept where we're saving $25 plus $10 each week. Then we can know that our variable is W. Now we rewrite our expression. So make sure that you have all your notes squared away. Make sure you have those examples figured out. That is all. That's all, folks. That's it for what we have for our first flip video. We'll come together now and we'll see what we have for our notes. Thank you very much.